Welcome to Jay's Corner. I'm the author of Maximize Your Medicare, this book here. Very important. The Medicare season's here. We'll have all the information that is available to be able to describe to the general public on October 1st. Not September 30th, October 1st. On October 2nd, not coincidentally, which is a week from today, incredibly unbelievable, I'll be able to describe Medicare. I'll go through the parts A, B, prescription drugs, Medigap, Medicare Advantage, how to choose, things that I'm going to be looking for, and presenting to people who have questions. You need to be a paid subscriber to the newsletter. You can see the URL just below my image, right, which is jo.substack.com. If you are already a paid subscriber, the reality is you don't have to redo anything. You're going to get access to a website where the recorded version will be there for you to watch later. I think we're going to be able to expect more choices. I've already given you a look. Please check out the other videos here on this channel and on the Maximize Your Medicare YouTube channel. I have two because we're going to talk about topics that have nothing to do with Medicare. And this is just the way our society works. You know, if they see the Maximize Your Medicare channel, they're not going to be interested in stocks for show, bonds for dough. They're not, right? In other words, you're a millennial child, you're a millennial Gen X, who is not Medicare eligible and may not be thinking about Medicare at this point in time. They're not going to be listening to the Maximize Your or watching the Maximize Your Medicare channel. And that is unfair a bit to me, but that is the way the world works. It's YouTube's world. I'm just living in it. Okay. So, yes, absolutely. We'll be going through Medicare. I'll be able to actually take you through Medicare Plan Finder. And while I won't be making any suggestions, I will not be making any recommendations about specific plans. I'll be giving you an idea on how many choices there are, and what parameters, what information I'll be looking through the Plan Finder, and giving people my insight on how that can affect your selections. I do need to swerve here, which is that if you want my specific guidance, that is possible. It is without charge. You can just send an email. There's going to be a link in the text below the video today, which is not there at the moment because, I'm winging it. There is no charge for it. The only time that there would be a charge, as you can see on the schedule below, is if you have some very complicated financial planning interaction. Now, that is more common than you might think. The impact is in the thousands of dollars. Very certain of that because of the number of cases we've handled. I've known this is the reality. And you can remember, for persons who have followed me for a while, that, I flew to Nashville this spring to largely tell the high end of high net worth wealth managers that this was out there, and especially what was already a tough year, in the spring of this year. Okay, this article comes from Bloomberg, which is that medicine's worst paying specialty is luring billions from Wall Street. There it is right there. So you can see that I've actually made mention of this fact, right? And the point here is that, and we have seen headlines over the last week, and the headline was the fact that big primary care physician practices are being bought by private equity chains, and health insurers are vying for doctors at the gates of the healthcare system. I think that this is probably inevitable given, the very tangled web of healthcare delivery. Very, very, very tangled web. I think that that's fair to say at the minimum, and I'm not here to say this is right and this is wrong. Right? I'm just trying to help people understand the way the world actually is. And that's the key to Jay's Corner, right? I'm not here for politicking or pulpiteering. What I am here, however, to talk about is the fact that this makes it a little bit more complicated for people in an already complicated world. For some people, this is going to be very convenient. And you can understand the rationale, right? Which is that if you can go to the pharmacy and you can get the attention of a primary physician there all at one time, then it can be quite convenient. In addition to that, you can understand their motivation, which is a primary care physician, some of who are in our stable here, have said, look, the way that we're delivering healthcare in the United States is a little bit weird, right? We've got one doctor here, specialist here, you've got, other specialists here, a la carte, without a coordinator of your overall health situation. I'm not splitting atoms, I rarely do, right? Which is that we're just using our common sense. The complication here is the fact that you can see that it's why CVS Health Corp, parent of insurer Aetna. Now, full disclosure, Aetna is one of the many carriers that we represent. Certainly. It is a large, one of the dominant, one of the few dominant carriers of Medicare plans in the United States. Very clear. But you can see what ends up happening here is that now it looks and feels. It can look and feel to people who are not fully informed about the way that Medicare works. Don't forget October 2nd, right? Don't forget the web channels, the Maximize Your Medicare channel, right? On how actually Medicare Advantage works. You can imagine you're 63 years old, you know nothing about Medicare, and then you turn on Medicare and you go, oh, well, it works like my health insurance. It looks and feels the way it did before. That means we have this network, we've got a primary care physician who needs to provide referrals, etc. So and this is the complicated thing about Medicare, it's what justified kind of, this book, right? Which is that the language can look like it uses the similar terminology. It doesn't work precisely the same. And the reason I'm using this first segment here is because of the fact that this has made it even more complicated, right? Which is that now you go into a pharmacy and CVS, nothing against CVS, right? I go to CVS for sure. The fact of the matter is now it looks like, okay, well, I can get my primary care physician all in one package and sits here with Aetna. No one said a particular plan is best for you. But now you can see what has happened, right? Which is that primary care physicians there, the plan is there at a location you know. And so while it is convenient, it's not the extra step to suggest that it's best. And this is, a tough spot. Because while I'm stopping well short of saying that, that this is necessarily a negative, what I am saying that it has made it more complicated choice, right? Because now this shift is changing how Americans get health care. Right? And nothing's too surprising about the rest of the article. I'm trying to cut it down for you. And you can see here what has happened is, and here's where we're going to have to do with this. Right? And you can see a bunch of different, and I'm not saying quotes, and I'm not saying it's wrong. This is what I was saying about the a la carte, delivery of healthcare in the United States. The issue is that the health insurance as under Medicare is, using this slightly different language. The issue here is that a couple of things. Now, it gets less savory. How's that for subtly? Less savory. is that in the background, what is also true, is that there are organizations inside of Medicare Advantage plans who are benefiting more if they beat cost estimates. So it's kind of like, you've told your parent, I'm a B student, and then you get an A-. What happens? Well, you get an extra allowance. That same type of thing happens in Medicare Advantage under something called accountable care organizations. And it sits there invisible, almost invisible to individuals. It's legal. I'm not accusing somebody of wrongdoing here. There was a clause that prevented this. That clause was repealed during the last presidency. And it was upheld and continued during this presidency. So again, no pulpiteering, no politics, right? This is not a political statement that I'm making. But this is, in fact, the way the world works. Okay, so now what you have is an extra layer here. Now you're talking to a primary care physician who happens to be in this location, which also happens to be steering you to a particular set of plans. So even beyond CVS and this particular situation, this can occur now and in a legal way today. And with insurance companies and private equity being private investment pools, and we won't get into the nuts and bolts of how they work. But the fact is that now the carriers buying the primary care physicians, the incentive there is very, very high. Don't forget, don't call me a doctor hater. My beloved late father, medical doctor, you're barking. If you're pointing a finger at somebody, that's fine. You want to point a finger because you don't like me, that's fine. If you want to call me a doctor hater, that's not fine. Okay. Absolutely positively not. Absolutely positively not. The concern I have with this very tangled web, which is complicated, as you can see, complicated, is that it has de facto put the doctor, it has put the pharmacist, the pharmacy, not the pharmacist, the pharmacy, in the spot where they're being, in effect, your financial planner. Right? Because what are they ultimately doing? They're giving you some recommendation about this B. And you can see what I'm saying here. In this, I've just made it green. This is a big number for persons under Medicare. It's a big number, right? Because maybe you own your house. Maybe you are in a senior living facility. You know what the cost for housing is. The variable one is insurance, and then also your out-of-pocket expenses for healthcare. And that, for just convenience sake, becomes an issue for Jay. And there's your reason. That's why I'm spending so much time on this particular segment. Am I out here to say the laws, the legislation is supposed to be X or supposed to be Y? No, I'm going to stop short of that. Like I said, no pulpiteering, no politicking here. What I don't like, what is uncomfortable though, is now for that practice, those sets of practice to be wandering into Jay's backyard. Right? I'm not reading somebody's x-rays. Right? I'm not. Wouldn't think of it. Why? I'm not trained for it. I'm not strictly educated for it. Does that mean that I couldn't have if I chose that profession? Well, if you ask my late father, he, pointed out, you had to study in order to do that. He was underwhelmed with my exertion. Let's put it kindly, at adolescent Jay, right? And I'm not the only one, I'm sure. But you can see my point here. which is, I'm not reading somebody's x-ray. I'm not giving someone healthcare advice. But this complication here has wedged the doctor into a spot where they're giving, ultimately, an opinion here on this spreadsheet. And I am very uncomfortable with that.